I live in a small suburban neighborhood in Colorado, the kind where every house looks kind of same, and the streets are always quiet after dark. I used to think this place was boring, safe, predictable. That changed one summer when something happened that still keeps me up at night. It started in July 2016. I was 17 and living with my mom and little sister. My dad had passed away a few years earlier, so it was just the three of us. The house we lived in wasn't anything special. 2 stories, a basement, and an attic that we never really used. One night, I was up late playing video games in my room. It was around 2:30 in the morning, and I had my headset on. My room was on the 2nd floor, right beneath the attic. In the middle of a game, I suddenly felt this vibration above me, like something heavy had dropped. I paused the game and listened. At first, nothing. But then I heard what sounded like soft, dragging footsteps across the ceiling. Slow, deliberate. I figured it was a raccoon or something. Maybe a squirrel. I told my mom the next morning, and she called pest control. A guy came out and checked the attic. He was only up there for about 10 minutes before coming down and telling us there was no sign of any animals. No droppings, no chewed wires, nothing. The next few nights were quiet. But a week later, I heard it again. The same dragging sound. This time it was closer to the attic entrance in the hallway, just outside my room. I opened my door and just stared at the ceiling, waiting to hear it again. Nothing, but I felt like something was up there, watching. A few days later, my sister, who was 10 at the time, started telling my mom that her stuff was going missing. Small things, bracelets, her favorite hairbrush, some snacks she kept in her drawer. My mom told her she was just being forgetful. But then it happened to me. I kept a small Bluetooth speaker in my room that I used every night to play music while I slept. One morning, I woke up and it was just gone. I searched everywhere, even under the bed. It had completely disappeared. Around that time, I noticed the attic entrance looked slightly off. The cover wasn't flush with the ceiling like it normally was. It looked like it had been moved or nudged from the inside. I mentioned it to my mom, but she brushed it off, said the pest control guy already checked it. A few nights later, I decided to test something. I placed a ladder under the attic entrance and pushed the cover open just slightly, enough that I could slide my phone up and snap a photo inside with a flash on. I wasn't expecting to see anything. I figured I'd just see insulation and empty space. But when I looked at the picture, there was a face, a pale, dirty face, half hidden behind one of the beams. The eyes were wide open, staring directly at the camera. I dropped the phone, literally dropped it, and jumped back. I couldn't breathe for a second. I just kept staring up at the attic entrance, waiting for something to come down. I ran and woke up my mom. I showed her the photo, and she just froze. She called the police immediately. They came within minutes, armed, cautious. 2 officers pulled down the attic ladder and went up. What they found still haunts me. There was a man, probably in his late 30s or early 40s, filthy, malnourished. He had been living in our attic for what they guessed was weeks, maybe even months. He had taken some of our stuff, blankets, snacks, even a pillow, and created a little nest in the corner of the attic. He had a knife. He had been watching us. The scariest part? He had journals, pages and pages of notes written about us, about our routines, when we slept, when we showered, what rooms we used the most. He even had notes about my sister's school schedule. There were drawings, too, of us, of our house. Some of the drawings were just disturbing, violent. The man didn't say a word when they arrested him, just smiled. This horrible, dead-eyed smile. After he was taken away, we found out he was a homeless guy with a criminal record. Assault, breaking and entering. He had apparently snuck in one day when we left the garage door open, climbed up into the attic from the access hatch in the garage ceiling, and just stayed there, quiet, waiting. We moved out of that house a few months later. None of us could sleep after that. Even now, years later, I still look at ceilings. I still check the attic in every place I live, because you never really know who might be watching you from just a few feet above. I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood in New Jersey. One of those places where nothing ever really happens, and everyone knows each other. When I was 17, my parents moved us into a new house at the end of a cul-de-sac. It was bigger, had a huge backyard, and seemed perfect, but something always fell off about it. The first time I noticed anything weird was a few weeks after we moved in. I started waking up in the middle of the night, feeling like someone was watching me. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, maybe stress from the move or just adjusting to a new place. But then it started happening more often. I'd wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, heart racing, the room ice cold, and I'd swear I saw a movement in the hallway just outside my door. But no one was ever there. One night, I stayed up late playing games. Around 1 a.m., I went downstairs to grab something to drink. As I passed the basement door, I heard something on the other side. It was faint, like shuffling. I froze. The lights were off, and everyone else was asleep. I opened the door slowly, flipped the switch, and stared down the steps. Nothing. Silence. But the air coming up felt colder than it should have been. Over the next month, small things started disappearing. Food from the fridge, clothes from the laundry, random stuff from the garage. My parents thought my younger brother was sneaking snacks and losing things, but he swore he wasn't. I believed him. One afternoon, I came home from school earlier than usual. I walked into the kitchen and heard something in the vents. It sounded like crawling. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a raccoon or a squirrel. I followed the noise to the hallway vent and pressed my ear to it. Something scraped against the metal from the inside. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I heard soft thumps from above my ceiling. Not the roof, inside the attic space. It sounded like slow, deliberate crawling. I turned on my lamp and sat there, listening, heart pounding. The noise stopped the second the light came on. The next morning, I told my dad. He went up to the attic, but found nothing except insulation and dust. No droppings, no signs of an animal, nothing. He told me I was overthinking it, but I knew what I heard. A few nights later, I stayed up again. Around midnight, I turned off all the lights and sat quietly by my bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. I wanted to see if anything was moving around at night. For nearly an hour, nothing happened. But then at 1:47 a.m., I saw a figure walk silently past my room. It wasn't any of my family. It was tall, skinny, and moved awkwardly. I held my breath. The floorboards didn't creak. It didn't feel like a person. Just wrong. I grabbed my phone and texted my dad, "Someone's in the house." He came out seconds later, confused, holding a baseball bat. But the hallway was empty. We checked the doors. All locked. Windows, too. Nothing made sense. We searched the entire house, including the basement and attic, and found nothing. A week went by with no incidents. Then one morning, my mom found a trail of small, muddy footprints in the laundry room. They started near the basement door and ended by the garage. None of us had muddy shoes, and the prints were too small to be from any of us. That's when my dad installed security cameras. One in the kitchen, one in the hallway, one facing the front door, and another outside by the basement entrance. 2 nights after installing them, we caught something. At 2:12 a.m., the hallway camera picked up movement. A man, thin, shirtless, and barefoot, crawled out from the basement door. He looked like he hadn't seen sunlight in years. Pale skin, messy hair, sunken eyes. He moved on all fours like an animal. He stopped outside my room, stood up slowly, then walked down the hall and disappeared from view. We called the police immediately. They arrived within minutes, searched the house top to bottom, and this time they found it. Behind a false wall in the basement, behind shelves filled with junk, was a small crawl space. Inside was a blanket, food wrappers, a flashlight, and a notebook. Someone had been living in our house for weeks, maybe longer. The notebook had scribbles, drawings of our family, creepy notes like, "She goes to bed at 9, and don't let them hear you breathe." They never caught the guy. We think he escaped through the garage when the police arrived. To this day, we don't know how he got in or how long he was hiding there. But every now and then, I still wake up in the middle of the night and feel like I'm being watched. even after we moved. And I always wonder, what if he was there even longer than we thought? What if he's still watching? In 2016, my aunt moved into a small suburban home in Connecticut after a rough divorce. She was in her early 40s and trying to start fresh with her teenage daughter, Rachel, who was 14 at the time. The house was on a quiet street with tall trees, clean sidewalks, and neighbors who waved from their porches. It seemed like the perfect place to start over. The house had 3 bedrooms, one of which was set up as a guest room. It was at the far end of the house, near the back, separated from a main hallway by a small utility closet. The previous owner had lived there for decades before passing away. Nothing suspicious, just an elderly woman who died of natural causes. At least, that's what the realtor said. For the first few weeks, things were peaceful. My aunt, a school teacher, kept herself busy redecorating, and Rachel started at her new school. I visited often because my aunt and I were close. One night, after a long dinner, I ended up crashing on the couch instead of driving back home. Around 3 a.m., I woke up thirsty and went to get a glass of water from the kitchen. As I passed the guest room, I heard something, a soft creaking sound like the bed shifting. The room was supposed to be empty. The door was closed, but I stood there listening. Then I heard it again, creak, creak, like someone slowly rocking back and forth. I opened the door slowly, heart thudding. The room was dark except for the faint orange glow of the streetlight bleeding through the blinds. I turned on the light. Empty. The bed was made. Nothing on the floor. Nothing unusual. I chalked it up to the house settling, or maybe something from a utility closet next to it. But over the next few weeks, things got stranger. Rachel started complaining about the guest room. She said it gave her a bad feeling. One day, she told my aunt that she saw a woman standing in the hallway near the room late at night. She described her as pale, with long black hair, wearing a dress that looked old, like something from decades ago. My aunt brushed it off as nightmares or stress from the move. Then things escalated. Lights in the hallway would flicker at random, but only near the guest room. Doors would close on their own. My aunt even called an electrician, who said the wiring was perfectly fine. One weekend, I stayed over again. Rachel had gone to friends, and I offered to help my aunt move some furniture. That night, she let me sleep in the guest room. She warned me it might be cold, but I didn't think much of it. At around 2:30 a.m., I woke up freezing. The kind of cold that feels unnatural, like the air itself is dead. I sat up and noticed the door was slightly open. I was sure I had closed it. I got up to shut it fully, and that's when I saw her. In the hallway, maybe 10 feet away, was a woman, pale skin, jet black hair, wearing what looked like a dirty white nightgown. She was standing completely still, facing the wall, not moving, not making a sound. I froze. I couldn't even breathe. Then, slowly, she turned her head, not her body, just her head, and looked at me. Her eyes were black. Not dark, not shadowed. Black, like there was nothing behind them. I slammed the door shut and backed away, heart racing. I stayed up the rest of the night with the lamp on. In the morning, I told my aunt everything. Her face went pale. She believed me. She admitted that she had seen the same woman a week earlier, stand at the foot of her bed, staring at her while she pretended to sleep. That same day, we searched the guest room and the utility closet beside it. Behind the closet's drywall, we found something, a hidden compartment, no larger than a crawl space. Inside was an old trunk. Inside the trunk was a rotting nightgown, a faded black and white photo of a woman. Same long black hair, same cold expression, and a diary. The diary belonged to a woman named Helen, who had lived in a house in the 1950s. She had mental health issues and, according to the entries, believed her husband was poisoning her. The last entry was frantic, full of rambling words and violent drawings. We gave the diary to the police, who told us Helen had been institutionalized after attacking her husband. She returned to the house after he died and lived alone until she passed away. Alone, and possibly still paranoid and broken. We burned the gown and sealed the crawl space. Things got quieter after that. But every once in a while, when I talk to my aunt on the phone, she tells me she still avoids the guest room at night. She keeps the door closed and a chair pushed up against it. And Rachel? She never walks past that part of the house without turning all the lights on. I don't blame her, because I know what I saw, and I'll never forget those eyes. Back in 2014, I lived in a suburban neighborhood in northern Illinois with my parents and younger brother. It was one of those newly built communities, all the houses looking nearly identical, spaced out just enough to offer privacy, but close enough to hear your neighbor's lawnmowers on Saturday mornings. Our house was 2 stories with a finished basement, quiet, modern, and a bit too perfect. When we first moved in, everything seemed normal, until about 2 months later, when my brother, who was 10 at the time, told us he thought someone was watching him through the air vent in his room. We laughed it off, obviously. Just a kid with an overactive imagination. My dad even unscrewed the vent to show him it was just ductwork. Nothing there, but he kept saying it, kept insisting he could hear breathing at night. Then things started happening. We would find furniture slightly moved in the morning. Nothing major, just small things, like a chair an inch or 2 off from where it was, or a cabinet door open when we knew we closed it. We assumed we were just forgetful, until the basement door started opening on its own. We always kept it shut, mostly to stop the dog from going down there. But every few days we'd come home and find it open, wide open. My parents thought the door wasn't latching properly, so my dad had someone come out and fix the hinge and latch. It didn't help. The door kept opening. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. As I was walking back to my room, I passed by the vent in the hallway, and I swear to God, I heard something behind it, breathing, slow, raspy, steady, like someone struggling to stay quiet. I crouched down, heart pounding, and listened. It stopped. I stood there frozen, staring at the metal slits, knowing, absolutely knowing, that someone was behind them. I told my parents the next morning, and they finally took it seriously. We called in a contractor to inspect the ventilation system. He said everything looked normal, but I could tell he was uncomfortable. He kept looking over his shoulder while working. Then he said something I'll never forget. This system is big, bigger than most homes this size. Someone could crawl through it if they wanted. We asked him what he meant, and he explained that the ductwork, for some reason, was large enough for a small adult to fit through. Unusual, but not impossible. That same week, our dog went nuts one night, barking, growling, standing in front of the basement door. My dad went to check it out, thinking maybe a raccoon had gotten in somehow. He opened the door and heard footsteps, fast ones, darting down the stairs. He turned the lights on, ran down, but found nothing except a small vent cover in the basement wall, hanging loose. He bolted back up, called the police. They searched the whole house, the basement, the attic, even used heat sensors. Nothing, but that wasn't the end. A few days later, my mom was cleaning and moved the couch in the basement. Behind it, wedged into the wall next to the vent, was a disposable camera. The police took it and had the photos developed. There were 12 pictures, all of them taken from inside the vents. Photos of us, me, my brother, my parents, sleeping, watching TV, eating dinner. The angles were tight, the images grainy, but it was clearly us. The last picture? It was in my brother's room, and the timestamp was just 3 days earlier. The house was swarming with police after that. They discovered a hidden panel in the basement wall, leading to a small crawl space. It had old blankets, water bottles, food wrappers, and a box cutter. Someone had been living there, watching us, for weeks, maybe months. They never caught him. We moved out within a month. My parents sold the house at a loss and didn't care. They just wanted out. We never figured out who he was. But sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and find myself staring at the vent in my room, just listening. Because once you've lived with the fear of being watched inside your own home, that fear never leaves you.